McKenna, why do you place just one crumb of basic human compassion on this fat-free muffin of sociopathic attachment?
Saying thanks for...
Thank you for your interest and for coming all the way over to my apartment.
Yeah, no.
You hear that in the background? I'm going to hold my mic up. You probably won't be able to pick it up.
No, not with these mics. I hear a very, very, very... It's like almost a little hum or a little whistle sounding.
It's the Shabbat siren.
Oh.
Which tells everyone to just stop.
Okay.
Which is ironic because we're just starting.
That's right. Although I may have to stop because I'm a Shabbat. What do they call them? The goy, Shabbat goy, whatever they call it. The kid who can turn on the equipment for them because he's not.
Oh,
Jewish.
right. Yeah.
But I can't really do that. But
I wonder if that's someone's designated job every week. It's like that is someone's.
Well, there was a term for that person, so it's definitely was like there were definitely kids that were selected. I don't know if they still are. I wouldn't be surprised, but
Are you a Jew?
I am a Jew.
Do you have to not be a Jew to have that job?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they get more bang for their buck if they can have somebody who's also Jewish. But I don't think they would do it because it would be like.
Yeah, I don't think that.
Yeah, but it's kind of curious. These nether Jews, like I assume you as well. You don't. You're going to see her.
I press buttons on Shabbat.
Yeah. You, sir, press buttons on a regular basis. On Shabbat as well, you're going to go see her?
Yeah.
Spike Jonze? Yeah.
Spike Jonze is her. I saw it 2 days ago, and I want to see it again.
You saw it 2 days ago? I thought you maybe saw it like months ago.
No, I saw it on opening night on Wednesday, and now I'm seeing it again. It really made a strong impression on me.
I've heard really good things about it. So that's there's somebody probably would probably really get a kick out of working with sometime, right?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
I think he's a unbelievable filmmaker.
Yeah. I would put him up there with, I don't know, the Coen brothers.
Yeah, put him in the pantheon. Absolutely.
So how was that experience, and how long were you on the set? Or was it just like a one-day thing because you're in that one scene, so I assume so?
It was a 2-day thing because it was a long scene, and there's a quick scene before the dinner scene where he enters the apartment and we greet each other. So, yeah, the whole thing took just 2 days for my involvement in that movie. You're talking about Inside Llewyn Davis.
Thank you, yes.
The new film
Not Fargo.
Not Fargo.
Not
Big Lebowski.
Big Lebowski, yeah. But what I think will be the third of the three most beloved Coen brothers because I think it was so spectacular.
I wonder. I mean, they've made so many good movies. I don't know.
That's true.
Yeah, it was a real treat. These are guys whose movies I've been quoting since I was like in junior high.
Absolutely.
So to be able to, work with them was awesome.
How'd that come about then?
Audition. It's the only thing in my life I've ever gone through an audition. The script said Marty Green, early 30s, extremely Jewish-looking man. So then my agent immediately picked up the phone and called me and said, "We got something for you. We got a live one here."
That almost there's a slight the description could be interpreted in different ways.
Yeah, I see where you're going. I don't. I mean, it's just how things work. I don't really have a problem with that. I know I look a certain way, and like when I went in for the Coen brothers for the audition for that movie, I definitely Jewed myself up in a way. I went to Walgreens and got $18 glasses that made me look like I'm leading a small accounting firm from the 1960s. Basically in a way I did sort of prostitute 5,000 years of beautiful culture and history to get a 3-minute part in a film on the one hand. On the other hand, it's a good role. No one's taking all that sort of stuff way too seriously anyway.
Yeah. Well, no. Growing up in New York, I think you grew up in. You grew up
Newton, Mass, in suburbs of Boston.
Yeah. I was thinking Boston, but those people in the film really reminded people that I remember seeing on the street, or seeing in New York growing up. I think they did a remarkable job, especially because where do they come from, Wisconsin or somewhere, or Minnesota, right? So it's to me that was pretty. I just thought, wow, they did a really great job of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, the movie's set in 1961, so I don't remember what people were like then, but it did capture. It's a very moody and atmospheric film in the sense that it created a world that's very rich and plausible based on what I imagine the early 60s could have been like in New York, especially with its sort of downtown circle of folk singers and its uptown circle of intrigued but tepid academics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. It was, of course, I wasn't around either.
Well, I didn't want to, I'm not going to presume I know your age.
Not then, anyway. I was around a little while later. But even if you go like 8, 9, 10 years later, I'm saying these were people that look familiar in the film.
Yeah, yeah.
For that reason, I was immediately I felt comfortable and I felt at home in the movie while I was watching it. And then of course it's the Coen brothers, and they have to fuck something up pretty bad for me not to really like the movie.
Yeah,
like I'm a big fan of some of their least popular films, I think.
Like what?
Well, I'd say what is it called? The one they did that wasn't The Quiet Man. What was it called?
A Serious Man?
A Serious Man, thanks.
That's a great movie, yeah.
I really loved that one. And you talk about a Jewish, type. I mean, but
yeah.
I thought that was a really brilliant type, and I know I've talked to people who said they walked out of it.
Really? No, I really enjoyed that film. Those are my Polish landlady's wife.
Uh-huh.
They like to talk in the doorway sometimes.
It's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah. Again, atmosphere.
Yeah.
It's great.
The Hasids in the background, the Poles in the foreground.
And after all, we're the ones that are moving into these neighborhoods that have been Polish for quite some time.
Yeah, yeah.
We are the gentrifiers.
Yeah.
We are the gentrifying nation.
Yeah. We are a part of the problem in many ways.
I don't look at it that way.
Okay.
But I look at a city as a malleable and as an ever-changing organism of sorts. And, I think it's from this time that cities started. They've always been changing, and different ethnic groups and folks have been moving in and out of different neighborhoods for various reasons. And that's natural. It's when corporations and politicians and realtors, all those people get together and they connive to change the laws to allow for tax incentives and things of that nature.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other thing.
No, you've painted a very beautiful demographic watercolor.
Thank you. Well, congratulations on Girls, Alex.
Thanks.
Oh, it's Alex Karpovsky, too. I didn't mention that during the beginning.
Well, will you have some sort of bumper at the top?
Of course.
Yeah, so that's where all the business will.
Kind of. Yeah, again, I'm trying to... We're going to get to, of course... everything, but it's like, for me, I've been doing this show, and for a long time, especially when I turned it over to a podcast. When the first couple of times you were on, I think, or at least the first time, you came to the studio, that little studio.
It was a cargo container in a parking lot.
All right, when you describe it like that,
I think there's a lot of charm. Man.
Yeah, it was a radio station, and it was. Happened to be in a cargo box.
Which happened to sit in a parking lot.
Okay. It could also be called a beer garden. But anyway, that whole place doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Cal Market, long gone.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's going to be an Alamo Draft House there soon.
Okay.
From what I understand. But so once I went over to the podcast and I dispensed with the radio part of it, it opened up the time frame as well as the idea of how to do the show. I could reformat it. And so I've been working on, toward the goal of trying to get on people to just sort of talk about what it is to, be a filmmaker or someone who does, makes films or involved in that, and what that experience is like, where they see independent film going and all those types of things that people are hopefully interested in, know. And less about specifically always having to market, here's my new project, it opens Friday, blah, 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 So I was really glad when you invited me to do this with you.
How many times have we done this?
Well, I think this could be fourth or fifth time. Maybe fifth. Maybe.
I think this is our...
Maybe 5?
Third time.
Okay. Split the difference. We could run through
But I have
fast.
a bad memory.
Could have been even more, because there was one time when you were doing Good Night at South, and you were at South by Southwest.
Oh, and I just remember 2 more. Yeah, I think your number's accurate.
Might be more accurate. But there was one time where I actually said, no. I love Alex Karpovsky.
Too much.
But I just felt like, I don't know, it was for Good Night, the Sean Gallagher's film, and I was like, wow, is there anybody else from the film? Sorry, that was. I don't mean that to sound. It
was.
I'm sorry.
I mean, it did sound that way.
Okay, because I'm only too happy. But yeah, spread them out a little bit, little, because you had.
No, it was good for me too. The rejection it gives you perspective, it gives you resolve.
Okay.
So thank you.
Oh, sure. That's a nice guest. Who would thank you for rejecting you from a show. But you do so much for us. You must get tired of this stuff, too, to some degree. Especially if it's on a particular project you're talking to people.
I like talking to friends like you. Yeah, it can get tiring if there's a cluster of them kind of in one. You know, when you're saying the same thing several times in one day, that can get a little bit old. But, you know, it's not that. It's a good problem to have.
True. And maybe in a festival also, the people actually have seen the film, as opposed to maybe a junket thing. Some number of them may not have even seen the film.
It depends. That all depends, yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Well, I mean, there's girls, I guess, and which, of course, is probably, I'm going to guess, a lot of people are, of course, interested about, you know. So, do you like where your character has gone and where it's evolved to in girls?
Yeah. I do. Uh-huh. It was very unexpected, pleasantly so, and we're stretching him out. We're seeing different sides of him. We're seeing the underpinnings of a lot of the behavior that we were introduced to without understanding where and why it's happening. And I think
a little backstory, you mean?
Backstory. And exploring his constitution, why he has this constellation of fears and misguided ambitions and everything else. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's really fun.
So how are they? So they're kind of giving you maybe a thread, or like a story thread of your own, a little bit more? Because I'm not... There was one where your character, of course, is falling in love with Shoshana, and you know, you're like at first I enjoyed it. It was very funny. Where of course at first you're maybe the more jaded one, and then you just sort of inexplicably just fall head over heels for her, and you can't get her out of your head, and you're obsessed with her, and of course you're rejected. Mm-hmm. Is there even a more central thread this season?
This season, there's a different thread. There is a thread this season. It's very different than it was in season 2. And I think it'll be much more surprising in many ways than what happened in season 2. I think, in my mind, yeah.
Uh-huh. And how's the vibe on the show as it has grown in popularity and become this phenomenon? Because it really has.
The vibe on set hasn't really changed as far as I can tell. No. Like I've known Lena for a few years now. We did Tiny Furniture together, and then she went on, of course, to do this show, and I really noticed her changing very little, which I think is a testament to her maturity and her grace, and the fact that she just knows who she is. At a very young age, had a much better understanding of who she is than a lot of people in general, but almost everyone her age. And she sets the tone for a lot of things on stage, on set, including like morale and setting sort of a silent precedent of how we kind of tend to interact with each other. And because she hasn't changed and hasn't really made a big deal or anything about the show and the fact that people are starting to watch it, I think it does trickle down to others and sort of the atmosphere on set. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And for some reason, you just get a sense from this show that, and I don't know where I would get this sense. Maybe because I know you, but and I know I've met a couple of other people there. But that it's not a set with a lot of, it's not like it hasn't been co-opted by ego issues, maybe, or who's got the biggest trailer, that kind of thing. I have no idea what the set is like, so I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. We don't get into stuff. I really don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, so I'm just going to drop that.
Well, no, I mean that definitely happens on sets, and I don't feel like I've ever been on a set like that just because I've never done.
This is your first series.
It's my first series, and like in the handful of movies I've done, have been, except for one or two movies, have been ultra low budget movies where people don't have trailers. But all I can say is on our set, that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, I meant symbolically trailers, No,
and I understand. Yeah. And symbolically, that's not what we talk about. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Have they had a lot of, I guess where you see things changing is when you start getting on major celebrities coming onto the show in whatever roles. I haven't seen that. I don't think that's happened.
Major celebrities?
I'm not even asking for names. I'm just sort of saying that's usually, when because a series will get all of a sudden their budget increases and they just start getting big time folks, and it kind of changes the show a bit,
Yeah, we've had a handful of really talented, well-known actors on the show, but yeah, we don't sort of bomb the show with them, I guess,
because it can be a distraction from the experience of watching it.
I guess so. It depends on the person, I guess. But yeah, if there's like a really strong association that the people have with him, and then he's trying to do something very different, then of course that could be potentially distracting. Yeah.
Do you have anybody you can talk about who's coming on the show, or is it maybe there's a new character or a new actor? I don't know.
This
anything
season,
like that?
I don't know if I can talk about that.
Okay.
Is that a
You
drag?
could talk about it. No, you could talk about it. Just won't put it in. No, of course.
I honestly don't even know a lot of stuff. I go to the table reads.
Right.
Everyone goes to the table reads, but a lot of the stuff isn't cast when we're doing the table reads. So they we sometimes play a bunch of roles. Sometimes they bring in just helpers to temporarily fill in the role.
Right.
But
sort of like we saw the other night with the
Sundance reading.
With the Sundance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have temporary help or fillers, and then I'm not on set all the time, so I don't even know who they end up casting for this role. And sometimes, I guess I could find out. I just kind of sometimes forget, I guess. So my point is, I'll see the show when it airs, and I'll be like, oh, I can't believe we got her to be on the show. Or maybe I'll see them at a party, premiere party or something. But I won't know until much later. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. That's my answer of getting out of your question.
That's fine. But I'm glad you brought up the table reading aspect of it, because it's a nice way into this other side. Maybe people would be curious about what it is behind the scenes, what that process does look like for an ensemble show like this. So we know that the new season premieres Sunday, January 12th, episode 1 of the third season, and 2. Okay, back to back.
Them together, yeah.
And so, how many have you shot of the season already?
We shot 12.
A little just a tad closer.
Yeah, we finished this. Oh, sorry. We finished shooting the season in September of this year, and we filmed 12 episodes.
So they were okay. I kind of thought, because it would be crazy for you to go back and forth if you don't have to. I don't know.
Wait, what do you mean?
Could you shoot them in L.A.?
We shoot them here.
Oh, you do shoot them here?
We shoot them around the corner.
Oh, okay.
We shoot them in, yeah.
For some reason, thought they were shot in L.A. I don't know.
Nope.
I'm super sorry for not being a little bit more prepared about that, because
whatever.
Like I should know
most people assume that it shoots in L.A.
I don't know why I thought I had heard that it was. I don't know. Anyway, good. So that's great.
Yeah.
No wonder you live here.
Yeah.
I mean, you're here.
It's great to live very close to the stage. Yeah.
Oh my God, it must be. Yeah, and it makes sense because you see everybody around, so it's not like. Well, I mean, I don't see anybody. But. So what does happen? So you have shot everything already. So when would the next season begin?
Well, if we get the green light to go another season, we'll see. It'll probably go. We usually shoot from April to September, late August.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But do me a favor, if you could, don't shoot more than 5 seasons.
I'll relay the note to Lena. That's all I can do.
Okay, I appreciate it, because I think the show shows no signs that it's like getting remotely dusty or repetitive in any way. Mm-hmm. But I think what happens is that with American series often, maybe less so on HBO, I don't know, but a lot of them outstay or go way too long. Probably a little less the case on HBO, I'm going to guess. But the idea, like the British, you must watch British series, right? I'm going to guess, and it's like if anything, they're like, they maybe go the other way too much, where they just do too little.
Yeah.
Like 2 seasons, and each season is only 6 episodes or something crazy like that.
I think Lena is very mindful of this.
Yeah.
I think she definitely does not want to overstay welcomes, is the impression that I got.
Right.
Just hearing her in interviews and stuff.
Right. I'm sort of obviously being a little bit tongue-in-cheek about it, because, but I appreciate a series when they go out on top. It's
sure.
But
Seinfeld went out on top, and it was like in its 8th, 9th season, so I don't know how much.
Yeah. And they certainly did longer seasons too, right?
Yeah. Much longer.
Yeah.
Twice as long as ours.
Right. But they were warm and very, sincere and very loving people, and who can get tired of that, After a while, it's just those characters, But so that's season 3. It starts again on Sunday, January 12th. Got it. And we will see a lot more of your character.
Same amount, I would say.
You're on every show, pretty much.
Episode.
Every episode, more or less.
More or less, yeah.
Okay. And your affair with Lena's character, that is common knowledge yet, or
say it one more time.
Your affair that you have with Lena. Her character?
Whoa.
Lena Dunham's character?
Whoa.
No?
No.
Oh, okay. Just thought I'd slip it in there.
No, don't slip it in.
Okay. So, and now that you're not doing that,
I'm not confirming or denying that statement. I'm not denying it. I'm not confirming it.
Gotcha.
Just trying to make
You're
that
pleading
very clear.
the fifth on this.
Yeah.
Okay, understood.
You can't talk about, you can't talk about the season.
Of course not. And that I was throwing bait your way like that.
I'm not confirming or denying the bait.
So are you on a little break creatively, or I know you're normally so prolific. I imagine you might have a couple of things going on too.
I'm writing a few things, some TV ideas, some movie ideas, and if we're lucky enough to go another season for the show, then maybe I'll try to do one of them when we're done. So next fall, maybe, if everything coalesces smoothly.
Uh-huh. So nothing currently in production?
Nothing in production, no.
Wow.
No.
That must feel, I don't know. What are you doing with your time right now?
Writing.
How's that feel? Like just to have where you can just focus on that and not have to do anything else necessarily at the moment?
It depends on how the writing is going. If I have a nice day of writing and I feel I made hearty progress on something that I have faith in, then I'm feeling pretty good about myself.
Mm-hmm.
When that's not the case, when I'm having doubts, when I'm having blocks, then, anxiety tends to find me pretty quickly, and I feel like, all sorts of negative thoughts. So,
Really?
So I could only answer that question in a very local sense.
I understand. But what do you do if, are there any steps you take if you are blocked, or do you just wait it out?
Sometimes I go for walks. Sometimes I'll try to meditate again. Sometimes I'll take a nappy poo. Sometimes I try to juggle a few writing things at once for this very reason.
Yeah.
So I can sort of shift gears without taking a break creatively. So sometimes I'll just close one file, open up another file, and put my headspace somewhere completely different. I heard this is probably an urban myth, but I heard that James Cameron wrote Terminator and
Alien? I don't know if you wrote that. Terminator?
Just delete this whole idea. I don't have enough information now.
Alien 2. Got to go to...
At the same time,
anyway.
at different desks in his house. So when he had to block one thing, he would just go to another desk in his house and continue with the other script.
Oh, I see, okay.
But they were all blockbuster films. I can't remember the other two.
Yeah. So you came across a formula of some sort, not only in terms of his working approach, but also in terms of his storytelling, I think, around that time.
There's a formula nexus.
Yeah. And are you a fan of Cameron?
I love Terminator.
Yeah.
Love it. Blew me away as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Loved it.
Did you see Avatar?
Loved Avatar. I know I'm not supposed to say that maybe, but I loved it.
Why not?
I don't know.
It's true with a lot of films. If it's too popular, if it's too big of a moneymaker, then there's backlash with it. And then all of a sudden it's not popular to say you liked it.
It's a great film.
Yeah. And so speaking of which, did you see Gravity?
I did see Gravity. Yeah.
What'd you make of that?
I liked it a lot. Mm-hmm. It was a technical marvel.
It was.
I could use a squirt more emotion.
Mm-hmm. An emotional squirt?
Yeah, a little squirt of emotion.
Mm-hmm.
A little more character development, character arc.
Mm-hmm.
It was great. I enjoyed it very much. I liked it when she cried and I saw the teardrop in 3D. I liked that moment. Wish there was more 3D gadgetry. When I see 3D, I want kind of a lot of thrills.
They incorporated it in a less typical special effects
It's
way.
3D.
You're yelling at me? I mean,
it's 3D. You're there to see effects. That's why I'm putting on the silly glasses.
I guess that's true. You mentioned Her, of course. You're going to see that again. And it's actually one I haven't seen. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that one.
Great film. Wildly ambitious film.
Right. Did you fall in love with The Voice, too? Do you fall in love with
I did.
Or you see why he does, anyway, for sure.
Both.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Performances are incredible.
Really?
ScoJo hits a Upper Deck homer.
ScoJo. Okay. Yeah. I heard. Didn't they originally cast a different actress in the role?
Yes.
And she
half
no,
of them
Emily
are
Mortimer?
called Emmas, right?
Is it Emily Mortimer? I think it was Emily Mortimer.
I don't think so.
Wrong. They got the wrong girl.
Samantha Morton.
Samantha Morton. Again, I can't.
But really, like over half of them are called Emily,
or Emma.
Or Emma.
Yeah. Samantha Morton was cast originally, right? And then she did the entire film. Can you imagine how crushing that must be for her to get replaced like that? That'd be hard. But I'm an empathizer, so
maybe she paved a road and understands how important her contribution was, and takes pride in that accomplishment.
Well, I sure hope she's arrived at that place that you're describing, because that would be good.
That would be good. Yeah.
But Scarlett Johansson, perfect, right? She was worked out.
I can't compare and contrast because I haven't heard Samantha Morton, who I'm very fond of as an actor. But yeah, ScarJo is great. She's got a very lovely voice. It's very sexy.
It is sexy.
And she is sexy.
She's sexy.
So Samantha Morton, but ScarJo is like
yeah,
blindingly sexy in my mind, and that's helpful to have in that voice, in that character. It really helped me. It helped me dive into that relationship that they're having in this movie,
right?
And really sort of surrender myself to it.
And did you get to see 12 Years a Slave?
Haven't seen that one yet.
Okay.
You?
Yeah. It was intense and painful to watch. Moments where you really just want to walk out. In terms of how visceral some of the moments were, but definitely worth seeing and sticking with, of course. And don't think it's like that kind of thing. It's so intense. Moments of it are painful, so you don't. I don't know that I could watch it again.
I've heard that from a few people.
Yeah,
great movie. Won't ever watch it.
Won't
again.
see it again. But I never saw Roots again.
Right.
But I hear they're remaking that.
Is that right?
That's what I've heard.
Huh.
Don't know if it'll happen, but I heard they're at least it's in discussion. Yeah.
Huh. We're having a discussion about it.
Right. We may in fact have to do a part 2. I might have to try to talk into that. I don't know if I've done a good job making it such a something to look forward to, but
Oh, this is very relaxing.
Okay. Maybe part 2, if it happens, if you want to do it, we could make it a very, a little bit less quite so mellow. We could do it, a lot more. I don't know. We could argue, and
well, there was that one moment where I yelled at you.
True.
When I yelled 3D.
I know that was my favorite moment. Kind of like my favorite moment.
You want more of those moments? Because
I feel like every time we've talked now, certainly one-on-one, it's been with microphones or it's been in this context, and it's kind of it's odd. You know what I mean? Like at this point, we've talked for hours, and it's all recorded conversation. It's kind of a strange thing.
Yeah,
I've talked to you elsewhere, but it's always been like in a group situation or in a party or social situation of some kind.
Right.
Just an observation, but you kind of want to just have an entertaining conversation because you assume people are going to listen to it.
Right, I hear you.
You know what I'm saying?
I do.
Thank you for letting me get that off my chest. I appreciate it. I know what you were going to ask me. I cannot go. I have other plans. To her, I'm going to see it though, and then maybe we can talk about it after. That's a good thing. I'll see it. And then we can talk about it.
Okay.
All right? In the next conversation.
Sure.
Maybe we do even a short one, a follow-up, because I think that would be...
Sure.
Your schedule. Are you around?
I'm around. I'm not going anywhere.
Okay.
And
I am only blocks away. You can come over where I am.
Yeah. That makes things a lot easier.
Yeah. Anyway. All right. Listen. This is a great place to pause. We'll pause.
The time
here.
just flew by.
It does fly by. And I always feel like, shit, I hope it was okay. I hope it was, you had a good time.
I had a great time. I just wish we had more time. I apologize for cutting things short.
Well, again, if you're open to it, you are like one of my first guests, and I'm forever going to be, your advocate, your friend, your supporter. So you can trust me on that. So thank you for coming back on for what I think will be maybe this 7th time. So appreciate it. Thanks very much.
It was my genuine pleasure.
Where have they gone now? It's nothing but crowd.
There's a big thing about my summer camp. Like, a lot of people from our circles went to this summer camp.
Oh, really? Which one's that?
It's called Camp Thoreau. And when I was a kid, it was not terribly far from Bear Mountain, a little further north, I guess. Not much. It was like up near New Paltz.
Okay.
And
was it a Thoreauian experience? Was that sort of the agenda of the camp? Because you kind of don't need counselors for that.
You're right.
Just like throw the kids in the wild.
On a certain level, philosophically, when they started the camp, yeah. So it was like this idea of back to earth. And
I heard when Thoreau would like get cold and hungry, he would just go to Emerson's house.
Is that true?
Like a lot of Walden Pond is kind of, I don't want to say fiction, but he made it to be a little bit more dramatic and heroic than maybe it was. Safety was always an Emerson call away.
Right.
I don't know. That's just an anecdotal thing that I heard.
Yeah.
Might not be true at all.
No, that sounds vaguely familiar
like
to me.
Emerson had a nice pad on Walden
Well, that's
Pond.
what the camp was like.
Yeah.
The first summer...
It should be called Emerson Camp.
Maybe. The first summer that I went there, I was 8 years old, and my parents, there was like so few people there that first summer camp. It was like 50, 60 kids and a bunch of like hippie counselors, literally. And the junior boys, who were the youngest, of course, were put in these lean-tos that were about 100 yards away from the main campus area, in the woods,
Into
these
these
lean-tos.
Lean-to? What's a lean-to exactly?
A lean-to is a little hut.
Okay.
It's a shack.
Okay.
It was basically three beds. So basically, what it was is a tiny little, no bigger than I'd say this area. This your
The listeners can't see where
you can't. No, this is this. You just have to we'll do a. I don't know. We'll put up
a PDF of my living room.
Yeah.
And then the couch that you're pointing at with your finger.
We'll put up schematic diagrams up.
It wasn't very big.
Like 5 feet by, I don't know. So 5 by 5 or something. I don't know.
Let's move beyond the numbers.
There was a bunk bed for two, so right, an upper and a lower, and then there were the cubby holes,
Mm-hmm.
and then above the cubbies for those three was one more bed, and that was it. And the year that I was there, they hadn't even put up screen doors. That came like the next summer, or 2 summers later. So that first summer, I mean, I was from the city, and I had been, of course, out to the country when I was a little kid. And it was like, but after a few days, I was like having the time of my life. Though, I was like, I was in the mountains, and enjoying myself, and we would. It was great.
A lot of mosquito problems.
Well, yeah, they like I was a lot of mosquitoes there. I guess it must have been a very humid.
And so a lot of your current friends, colleagues, peers are from.
Well, the camp ended up moving up to Vermont at a certain point in the 80s, and the rabbi was a camper by then.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, really early on. So he was one of my campers, basically. I don't think he was ever in my particular bunk itself, but he was. I was already a counselor by then, and he was a camper.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, and there were quite a few others that ended up in the film world.
Like who?
I'm trying to think of who you know. There's a bunch of the documentary world, but an interesting connection. Well, A.O. Scott of the New York Times was, but he's more of my age, so we were the same, maybe a year apart. And then also, did you see that movie Cutie and the Boxer?
No.
Did you hear of it?
Yes.
Okay, I think it's shortlisted for an Oscar, but you should check it out. It's probably, I think it's now on Netflix or something. But it's about these Japanese American artists and their son. If you haven't seen it, it's not going to mean a great deal to you. Who else? There were quite a few documentary filmmakers, and I know I'm probably forgetting some people, but as they come to me, yeah. Did you go to summer camp at all, or
no?
You didn't.
I was scared of leaving my family.
That's natural, though, and until you're kind of more pushed out,
No one pushed me.
Yeah.
I wasn't pushed. I stayed at home. I tried to do overnight camp, and I got very...
You did?
Scared.
Oh.
Well, not really. That's not really... That was sort of a Thoreauian truth. When I was in 6th grade, we went to something called Interlaken, which I think is a nationwide thing or something. I don't know. So it was like a 2 or 3 hour drive north from Boston, where I grew up, into New Hampshire, and it was a week or 5 days on our own. That was the first time I was separated from my family, and I was 11 or 12 years old, and it was a traumatic experience. Traumatic.
Yeah.
I mean, I was really highly anxious the whole time.
So what'd you do? Did you just
I powered through it, but I mean, I had to call my family like 4 times a day. It was a lot of tears, a lot of really dark thoughts.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like extreme homesickness.
Yeah.
Yeah. That I had homesickness here and there too, but my sister was there too. So she was a little older, took care of kind of, and it was such a very small and nurturing environment that it didn't overwhelm me. But it could have. I could see it in another camp. I could have. It was so little.
I feel if I had siblings, they would in general absorb a lot of my anxiety and fear and disorientation. It'd be, especially if I had an older sister or older brother, there'd be some sort of a protection umbrella.
Are you saying that in the present tense as well?
Well, no, when I was a child, I'm an only child. If I had siblings, I think I would have had protection in many ways. And as an adult, I think I would have become a more stable and healthy person than I am now.
That's a healthy introspection.
Mentally healthy.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah. And so, but it's obviously something you kind of figured out.
Well, I don't want to say I figured it out. It's a working theory based on open discussions I've had with people who have had siblings and people who are only children.
But your parents moved here, you were just a tiny kid, right?
So small, so scared.
Oh, wow.
So just sorry. This is becoming a pity story.
I'm just trying to kind of remember because we touched on it, I think, before. But you were not born in the United States, right? You were.
I was. I mean, there was so much. Yeah, you're right. There was so much. Like my parents never really made an effort to integrate culturally into America, so there was sort of. And I was an only child, and we lived in kind of a weird. We actually grew up in upstate New York. We were talking about upstate earlier in Binghamton, New York.
Did you?
Yeah, between the ages of 3 to 8, I lived in Binghamton.
Formative. I didn't know that.
Some formative shit happened. 3 to 8. So there's just a lot of folds and textures of disorientation and fear. And I think if I had a sibling, maybe there would have been a little of shielding or buffering or shock absorption. But maybe not. Maybe there would have been an amplification, a reverberation.
Sure.
I don't know. But I have a feeling I would have been better off. It's okay. It also made me independent,
right?
Which maybe is a good thing.
Yeah. Well,
I don't get scared in the dark.
You would get scared.
I don't.
You do not, because you had to take care of yourself and protect yourself. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess that's kind of true for every only child, and maybe some of the I was always terrified of the dark. Going in the woods, even as an adult on my own, kind of creeps me out, even though I do it.
I'm okay with that. I'm terrified of the ocean at night.
That is terrifying.
Well, it's one of the scariest things I could conjure is the ocean at night.
Yeah, that is. It's hard. Some people just, I admire that when they can just go for this, dip in the evening like that.
I have to have heroic amounts of alcohol in my body to skinny dip, or to dip at all.
Yeah, I didn't even say skinny dip, but
skinny dip is
that's true. Yeah. But night swimming, I guess, is about skinny dipping. So if you're going to swim in the night in the ocean, you shouldn't wear clothes because that's sort of part of that kind of whole act, that tradition. You're just supposed to do it skinny dipping.
Right. Well, one of my main fears, of course, of being in the ocean in general, but certainly at night, is someone biting me.
Yeah, of course.
So one of the things I'm most terrified of being bitten at is, where?
Your schmeckle.
My schmeckle.
I didn't have to say it. Yeah. You were suggesting that anybody worth their weight would know who you.
Any man.
Any man. I think any woman, too.
So that's always, whenever someone suggests, even whilst utterly obliterated and fucked up, if anyone suggests, let's go skinny dipping, I pause when I think of a catfish or a electric eel taking a nibble off my Wiener Schnitzel. Yeah, exactly.
Think about it. That doesn't even bite. It just stings, but what a nightmare.
Wrapping all its tentacle around your member.
Oh. Yeah, no, I'm never going into the water again.
Anyway.
Their sibling wouldn't even be of help, so maybe.
There are fears you can conquer in this world, and there are fears that are just endlessly stubborn.
That's a great way of putting it, and I think that's okay. I think, it's good to have a few fears, because then you're acting recklessly all the time or something. You have to have, a certain anchoring, Some of them are just wise.
Mm-hmm. Well, as a young man, I discovered that a lot of my drive and ambition is centered literally and figuratively around my penis.
Mm-hmm.
Not just sexual ambition, but it's a lot of my ambition is reverberation from it. And now I'm talking to him, also realizing a lot of my fears seem to revolve around my penis as well. So this is kind of a revelatory conversation for me.
Well, I hope it helps in some.
I do too.
Large, overly developed way.
Me too. We'll do a follow-up in a few months.
Yeah. Okay. All right. No, well, we probably will anyway. So, So I should ask. Do you know he's going to bother me about not bother me, but there he is.
Wow! Just as you said that.
But it wasn't him. But about a place maybe to meet, or not far, like from here, because he needs to be close to the G.
Who are you talking about?
I'm sorry, the rabbi again.
Oh, the rabbi.
I jumped around. It was get maybe a drink and a small bite or something like that. Do you have a?
Are you asking me for a restaurant suggestion?
For reference,
area?
Yeah, recommendation.
Or in this area?
Yeah, it could be, or just relatively close.
Sure. Well, there's Calexico. Do you know that place?
Yeah, that's the first place that came to my mind. Except that he lives in L.A., so he doesn't want Mexican food.
Oh, I see. That's understandable. Well, right on the corner is 5 Leaves.
5 Leaves?
5 Leaves.
Okay.
Across from Calexico, there's like a weird Polish place that I kind of like, but I've only been there a handful of times.
Mm-hmm.
If you want something sort of heavy and
relatively quick, fast, and probably cheap for our purposes.
You know that old film thing. You could, if you had to choose. How does it go? If you quick, fast, and cheap, you could only choose 2 of those things, but not 3 of those things. Wait, did I say that right?
It can't be quick, fast, and cheap, right? It has to be.
Because quick and fast are the same thing.
Usually.
Fast, cheap, and good.
Okay.
Which, if you were to make a film tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
Which of those 2 things would you do?
Oh, to make a film?
Yeah, if you were making a film tomorrow.
Film. Quick.
Which of those 2 things would you choose?
Cheap and good.
Wait, what? No, they're fast,
cheap,
and good.
Fast, cheap, and good. I would choose. Cheap. I guess cheap and good, but
then it'll take you a long time. Which I messed up because I said tomorrow. So if you had to make your next film indefinitely, starting tomorrow,
yeah, that's what
you would go cheap and good. It'll take you 8 years to make that movie.
Right. Okay.
Is that
the
okay?
real world?
Maybe that's okay.
Yeah.
You're going to change it?
Then it'll be a documentary, which would probably take 8 years anyway, because they follow the scope of your anxieties around swimming naked.
That's going to be the subject of your next documentary.
Yeah, and then that should take about 8 years anyway, because probably to get through that period.
That might be just cheap.
Okay. Why? Which would you choose?
I don't know.
Uh-huh.
Good. I would definitely go good.
Wait, what have you done?
Then I have to decide between cheap and fast. So I would probably say good and fast. It won't be cheap.
Okay.
But maybe we'll get some good investors on board.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, because you didn't say, we couldn't raise the money. Damn, I should have thought of that longer. But
okay, we'll come back to that.
I don't want it to. You never want it to look cheap. And fortunately, nowadays, I guess that doesn't have to be the case. It just maybe takes a long time to look good, even though it's cheap. Right?
Right.
You lived in so you lived in Binghamton, New York. I didn't know that part of your life. But when did you?
This is a biopic interview.
Yeah, a little bit.
I guess I wasn't emotionally prepared for it. I can quickly try to readjust, but those weren't the sort of emotional files I prepped for you today.
Well, the thing I was thinking a lot about it. I was actually thinking quite a bit because I actually do think about. Well, I don't script a lot, as you've noticed, but because I really do want to be very present as much as I can be. But the thing is since we already kind of talked, as your projects have come out in the last few years, we've actually talked through each one. And then this last time we did talk a bit about girls, and we talked about the Coen Brothers film, of course, Inside Llewyn Davis. And then I was thinking, what could we talk about? And what
we could talk about my childhood.
I mean, it's also.
I don't want to say it's like a dark tent I don't go into. I don't want to make it sound that way.
No, I don't.
A dimly lit tent.
We don't have to excavate either. I mean, I actually do have a goal within the context of your youth, and that is how were you introduced to films, and where did that crystallize for you? Like, oh, I could do this, because I think you went to school for in science, right? You went to Oxford.
Yeah.
You dropped out of there.
Yeah.
And so maybe there wasn't a point in your childhood, because it doesn't sound like people were introducing this to you in your family, or
No.
Yeah.
No, my dad is an academic. My dad is a professor. He teaches computer science at Boston University. My mom he's still there. My mom is a retired dental assistant. I mentioned earlier also that they made no real efforts to culturally integrate. So they don't know anything about American film or music or pop culture, really. So I grew up very confused for a long time, and I guess most kids are confused. And then when I started college, I really thought I was going to be an academic like my dad. I was really interested in neuroscience. That's my classes were sort of gearing somewhere towards that general vicinity. And then I started smoking weed for the first time my sophomore year of college. First time I tried it was freshman year. First time I got into it was my sophomore year, end of freshman year, sophomore year. And that really changed my life, I think for the better. I don't want to endorse weed. It's not for everyone. But at that time, I needed it. I needed to be injected with perspective. I needed to realize that the life I was living was not fulfilling. It was sort of like a forced enlightenment, where you step outside of your ego for a moment and realize the life that you're living, and realize that it's a choice, and you can make all sorts of different choices. Mm-hmm. Kind of maybe basic stuff, but once you're in the same stream of thought for 19 years, it feels like an epiphany and an awakening, without being too dramatic. But anyway, I promptly kind of started studying what I wanted to study rather than what I felt sort of subconscious and conscious inertia to study. And I also very quickly thereafter started doing plays, comedy plays, troupes, sketches, improv, stand-up. And it was really interesting to me. And so, long story short, I went to BU for my undergrad. My junior year, I went to Oxford, and that's where I really started doing a lot of this play, theater stuff, because it's really easy to do there. It's like, at Oxford and Cambridge, drama is such a nurtured extracurricular activity by the institution that any schmuck like me could just do it. There's 40 plays going on every night. It's not a big intimidating thing the way it often is in American universities, where mostly drama kids do plays. Mm-hmm. And it's a very kind of serious thing oftentimes. There it was much more playful.
Oh, okay.
And then I went back to BU, I finished there, and then I went back to Oxford for my grad degree,
right,
for my master's in social anthropology. So my studies had gone less scientific and more sort of a social science humanity. And then I was there for a while, and then I did much more aggressive writing and stuff, did my own plays, and then I dropped out, and then I moved to New York. You want me to keep going with this?
Makes sense. Then you would have, that documentary you made, Trust Us, this is all made up. I understand now why that would have been a compelling
that was a documentary I made about two improvisers.
Yeah.
And I was really interested in improvisation. I still am, but I first started to kind of really get interested in it, not only as a fun thing, but also kind of what are the underpinnings of it? How do people do this? And when I saw TJ and Dave, who are the subjects of that Trust Us Is All Made Up, I was blown away. I really wanted to understand the mechanics of it. I wanted to go behind the curtain as much as I can and figure out how they do what they do. And that's sort of what the movie explores.
It was phenomenal. That's a great concert film.
Thanks.
You really outdid yourself there. So if you're listening...
People who haven't seen it before will say so now you guys are going to do that show the rest of the week. Even after explaining to them, we're never going to do that show again.
We're all in it together, and we're all wondering where this is going to go.
And even sometimes after that, they're like, well, why not? You must have spent all this time writing it. No, it's always going to be different, always.
And I think that's a very important part of improvisation in general. This is something that occurs between all of us.
nothing worked out about it beforehand. We don't know anything until we look at each other, and then we start to know everything.
I truly believe there's magic. When it goes really well, who would have thought that?
Shit is going down, okay?
We won't go without a fight.
Oh, okay. Well, you picked your jersey color, Claire.
I'm enjoying this conversation.
You are?
Uh-huh.
Good. Yeah, it's hard to get, 'cause, again, I know you so well, but only so well, but I don't know, like, if you're seriously comfortable, like, how much you want to go into the personal territory. And this podcast really is generally more about art and process and film.
You can go wherever you like.
That's what I thought. And so you were here, and I know you were doing some of the comedy, and it wasn't like working out great, or it was like it was obviously not the right fit for you in the end. Mm-hmm. Sounds like anecdotally from what you told me before. But I just wonder, and then where was the point where you stumbled into, and maybe that's not the right phrase to use, but the independent film world? All of a sudden, you're getting these parts, and I know that you were they were friends asking you to do those roles, right? In almost every single case, correct? And then you were, because you didn't have to audition for any of these things, as you told me. How did that start? I don't remember the exact first roles, but I remember early ones like Beeswax and a couple of others.
In my early 20s, I was doing stand-up and working as a caterer, and a friend of mine from Oxford, who had moved to New York as well, was a video editor, and it was a small company that worked for 4 or 5 people, and he said, do you want to work here instead of catering, while still doing your stand-up and other things? He said it's much more interesting potentially, and it pays a little bit better. So I did it, and I really fell in love with editing, and that was my first exposure to anything related to film in my life. I didn't take any, I didn't study film, so it was really, really fascinating to me, nonlinear digital editing. And the stuff that I was cutting was really pretty awful. I was cutting infomercials, industrial videos, and a lot of karaoke videos. And I did that for a few years, and I really fell in love with the process. It was my little mini film school. Even with a bunch of rubbish content, it was still fun to try to create a narrative story visually. So the company that I worked for was really nice and cool. They became friends of mine, and they had a few cheap sort of cameras and microphones, and of course editing software. Which I think this is maybe right around the dawn of Final Cut Pro. But we weren't using Final Cut Pro. We were using something called Discrete Logic, which I think no longer exists. And so I made my first few movies with the help of the company. Mm-hmm. They gave me their instrumentation and a little bit of financial help, and that's sort of how I started. But I didn't make any short films. I didn't do that stuff. I just sort of tried to make a feature out of the gate, and it took me 2.5, 3 years to do it. But in retrospect, I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I did it that way.
Why?
Well, just short films. It's hard to really get anything going with them. They got to be really phenomenal and win a lot of awards to really be a true stepping stone for you. And also, you've gone to this Herculean effort of with a short film. You've gone to this Herculean effort of assembling a crew and getting everything together in a production and locations for 6 days or however many. Why not just extend it by a few more days and just make a feature? Mm-hmm. It's not always so easy, but a lot of the overhead and heavy lifting is in place. Just keep pushing it. That's usually the hardest part. Just go further with what you already have built, and you can get a lot more attention if you do a feature. I think. Maybe I'm wrong.
And that was roughly around what year?
I finished my first feature in 2006, The Whole Story.
Right.
Yeah, which is about a karaoke video editor who wants to be a filmmaker. Autobiographical.
Yeah, 2006. So were you familiar already with folks like, I don't know, Joe Swanberg and Mark Duplass and, Andrew Bajolsky, people like that?
I met most of those people and most of my friends in film on that festival circuit with The Whole Story. Andrew's from we're both from Newton, Mass, which is a suburb. Right. So I knew him a little bit. Not well at all, but a little bit. Joe I met at my very first film festival, the Northampton Film Festival in Western Massachusetts, small film festival, and liked him immediately. And the Duplass was like, I don't know, I met later.
Mm-hmm. Okay. One other thing I'm curious about, I guess, is when you started to, when did you feel like compelled to catch up on some level to the Pantheon, to start to familiarize yourself with a lot of the classics? And because I would imagine socially as well as just your there's your curiosity, of course. You know, I'm sure you've seen some of these movies as they over the years, maybe on TV or at the local, revival. I don't know if they still exist up in Boston anymore, but like just seeing films, classic, and having reference points and being able to talk to other filmmakers, and because so many of them are so obsessed with so many, classic filmmakers and generations of filmmakers before them. So when did you were able to start to catch up and do all that kind of stuff? Because you didn't really get into it till a little later on, right?
Well, I mean, I always watched a lot of movies. I mean,
Okay.
in high school, I watched a lot of comedies, mostly. We'd go to Videosmith, I think was the name of the rental chain.
Mm-hmm.
There was Flicks and Videosmith, and we would get stuff there. We were kind of deep in the suburbs, so it really kind of happened when we got our licenses, 16 and a half. And, there's like 5 or 6 good art house theaters in Boston that we would go to as well. Coolidge Corner, Kendall, Harvard
Right.
Film Archives.
What was the one that was on just behind, I forget the street, but it was near BU. It was it was behind Commonwealth Avenue, one of the adjacent blocks. There was a multiplex of.
It used to be the Nickelodeon.
That's
thing.
it.
On
I used to go there so much
forget
in the
the name of the
80s
street.
when I was living.
Yeah,
I
me
went
too.
there.
Well, my dad used to teach right above it.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah, it was like a block behind in this industrial, a little bit of an industrial building, if I remember correctly, on kind of like a quiet block.
yeah,
When my dad came to visit, I was going to school too at BU. This is before you, but and I remember my dad came up to visit once, and it was mid-'80s. I went to see Spinal Tap there.
oh yeah,
Yeah. But it also holds one other really great memory, which was, and I may have told you this anecdote, but I went in there, and I guess I was running a little late, and I went to see, I was thinking I was going to see the Alan Randolph film, Choose Me? You know Alan Randolph? He was Altman's, what do they call him?
First AD?
First AD, yeah. I believe that was the position that he held for many films early in, or Altman's career. And then he went off to make a bunch of films himself. Actually, I didn't think I was late until I was there in the theater, and the credits had apparently already rolled because the movie was going on. I thought, that's odd. I thought it was on time. So I sat and I started watching, and it was this very odd film. I said, this doesn't seem like the film I thought I was going to see. It was a black and white, very short scenes. They would fade in, fade out. And it turned out I was sitting through, and I thought almost the entire thing was Stranger Than Paradise.
oh really?
Yeah. And I was like, this is the best thing I've ever seen. This is it's just from then on, I was into the independent films.
Yeah,
It was that film.
people often talk about sort of a eureka moment, or to use your word from earlier, like a crystallization moment, a very sort of clear, distinct, compact turning point. I never feel like I had one of those. Or maybe I do, and I just can't access that memory.
Yeah, but you
Or
actually became a filmmaker. So sort of it doesn't really. I'm saying, but I know you're talking about other filmmakers.
Talking about other
Yeah, I know
filmmakers,
you are.
yeah.
But I even had
It just
it.
comes
I'm
up
not a
in
filmmaker.
interviews and stuff. It's like, was there this sort of, when was that moment?
Right. Kubrick watching.
Yeah, I don't
yeah.
know. I don't have that story. I should probably just create
Make
that
one up.
story, yeah.
Well, if you
It was
had
Barry
to,
Lyndon when I was 14 at the Coolidge Corner Theater.
Yeah.
There was an intermission, yeah. I don't have that story.
I actually lived also for I think 1 year about 2 blocks from the Coolidge Corner Cinema.
Oh, yeah? Nice theater.
But the Nickelodeon had a lot of that was that one that had a lot of I went there on a regular basis because there was always was always into the films.
I might try to see All Is Lost tonight. Have you seen that?
I have.
Did you enjoy it?
I loved it.
You did?
Yeah, I think it's really good.
Great. That's good. That emboldens me to go and see it tonight.
Oh yeah, no, you'll enjoy it. I mean, it's great, and it's like Redford was fine. He was great, but it could have been many other great actors that can hold the screen too. It's J.C. Chandor's film. I mean, it's a strong film.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So, how frequently are you going to the movies?
I've been going very frequently in the last like week or two, but that's because like.